Bandits? Check. Wolves? Got it. Villagers to help? Of course.
Can you aid us in gathering copper?
Is this 200 days of medieval dynasty? Nope. It's 100 days of Bellwright.
Oh, hello.
I arrived under this bell tower in a place called the Lowlands. According to this little tidbit over here, it's a poor region controlled by the cruel Lord Ashbourne. I had a quick look around inside the bell tower, looting a box for some coins and me, then picking up some torn papers I didn't even read, before heading towards the nearest town.
Haerndean.
It was a place called Haerndean, and I eventually found Elder Dobron there for my first quest. He didn't trust me yet, but said I could build a shelter on the outskirts of the village. I'll take it.
Gonna build a shack, and then I'll be back.
I traveled down the road a ways, and started working on my first home.
Ooh, makes me a little sick.
It didn't take me long to get all the pieces and put it together.
Ooh.
Look at that, I've got a shack. I put a few things in the storage inside, then decided to see what else I could build. Ooh, a campfire sounds nice. Placing the rocks was very satisfying, and I gathered a few more sticks to finish it. Ta-da! I noticed my food had run out at this point and ate a quick snack. Now it's time for some tools. I crafted an axe first, this club, and a torch.
Ha! Oh, no. I don't want to chop my stuff.
Then made this simple workbench where I can make, well, the exact same axe, club, and torch. Guess I need this research desk to unlock some more things first. I started building it, but ended up distracted trying to chase these rabbits for dinner.
I'm back, rabbit.
One little rabbits. One.
Calling it an early night when I realized I could sleep.
Good night. And it's raining.
I woke up the next day to a dreary rain and headed straight back into town to talk to the elder again. He wouldn't talk to me at first, so I stopped to pet this cat instead, then eventually sorted putting my weapons away so he would talk. I suppose running up on a stranger with an axe in hand is a bit much. He sent me on another quest, of course, this time to bring some traps and rabbit fur for the village. I needed to earn their trust to gain some followers of my own, and followed his instructions to talk to this lady named Amelie. She sent me after a hunter named Lubomir I could ask for help. He had set up a little camp down this path, and after a bit of discussion on bandits and wolves,
I'm sure you'll still be laughing when a pack of wolves rip you limb from limb while you're still alive.
I invited him to join me. Welcome to the party, Lubomir. I took him back home with me and put him to work building his own tent, while I ate some random mushroom I found in the woods. Then, after finishing his house, he finished up the research desk too. I think I like this guy. With the new research desk, I could unlock different things to craft, including the small traps I was supposed to make for the village. Now, get to researching, Lubomir. I worked on adding this chest for storage, and when the research finished, I set some traps to be crafted at the workbench. If only I could figure out when to put my axe away and stop accidentally hacking things. When the first trap finished, I set it nearby with a berry in it for bait. Then I grabbed some berries for our dinner that night. First thing in the morning, I went to check the trap I'd set and found it already had a rabbit in it, so I set it again with a mushroom this time and put the meat straight on the fire.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
While I waited for it to cook, I added some tools to the workbench orders for Lubomir and started research for an elm shortbow. The meat was done already after that, and I put one piece in storage for my friend, then kept the other for myself and headed off to town with the traps and pelt for the village. The elder was pleased, but of course he had another task for me. Apparently they have a problem with wolves. Yeah, me too. Not a big fan. I took the quest anyway though and made my way back down the hill to my shack, where I found I had another rabbit already in the trap. I was pretty excited about it and then went looking for some river reed. I needed it to research that bow and found some pretty quickly not far from the town. Turns out I can't have it though.
No. You guys should share. Can I swim? Oh my god.
I continued finding this shrine with some goodies and a few mushrooms in the forest. Eventually, though, I found more water and with that, more river reed. And these I can pick up. On my way back, I stopped to see the wolves Elder Dobron had told me about. Yeah, I think I'd like to at least get a bow first before taking them on. When I got home, I put the river reed away and started roasting some mushrooms. Next, went to check on the research for the bow, but it needed this simple cord that I didn't know how to make yet. And most of the other cool stuff also needed things I didn't have. Well, guess we'll just research this standing torch for now. Day 4, I researched this foraging camp and built it with Lubo's help. With it, my villagers can collect things like berries, mushrooms, and different plants from the area. While he finished up building, I started lunch, then researched this weaver's loom. I'll bet this is what I need to make the simple cord. I gathered all the rocks and wood it needed, but had already used all the river reeds. It was getting late though, and I decided to call it a night. I'll go in the morning. We had a visitor for breakfast on day 5. This cow made itself right at home in my tent. Would you like some rabbit? It was back to the lake after that. The trip wasn't too far, but I really didn't want to make it again soon, so I gathered as many reeds as I could fit in my pocket. Back home, I started researching this logging camp next and finished up the loom myself. Looks like you can make the simple cord with just a bit of flax. Perfect. I gathered some and checked a new rabbit trap I'd set. Food affects your health and stamina, and I was struggling to keep mine full while also keeping my friend fed too. Hopefully, this bow I'm about to unlock will help with that. My storage was already full that evening, so I added another camp chest, which Lubomir promptly got stuck on. Well, that's fun. I set him to follow me and led him away, only for him to go right back to the same spot. Clearly, this is not the place for this chest. For once, I intentionally chopped something with my axe, hoping to destroy it and build it elsewhere.
Okay.
I thought about chopping him next instead, but decided that probably wasn't the best decision either, and instead built a new storage to put the stuff he was trying to get. I finished the day gathering some berries to add to our dinner, and then made some more small traps at the workbench. Most of the next morning, I gathered wood and flax to craft the bow I'd unlocked and this hood. Shh, I'm hunting wabbits. Well, I tried anyway. After that, I reset my traps and got a notification about my raid threat being at 50%. Yay! Thanks for the warning, I guess. Maybe we should try this practice fight. Lubomir didn't even wait for me to get ready and started whacking me with his club. I'm not sure how fighting works in this game yet, and it was close, but he won in the end. Thankfully, he's on my side. Some extra armor certainly won't hurt. I slept well that night and woke up to old Lubo running over to the bushes. I suppose we have been eating a lot of random forest berries lately. When you gotta go, you gotta go. I gave him my old pants, which were definitely better now than what he had. Then I finally managed to kill my first rabbit with the bow and found another one in one of my traps. Feeling pretty good about food after that, I went to gather some wood and hemp, which I needed for rope. Is that snow? It certainly was. As I was adding a bandage and a newly researched shield to the workbench queue, the ground was quickly covered. Winter's here. I left Lubomir to work and went back to town. The merchant there had some things for sale I looked at. I just couldn't really afford much right now. There was a bookseller and innkeeper here too, and this bulletin board with way more things than I wanted to read. I examined them all anyway, hoping for a quest, and then tried to make a new friend. Hello, Leonard. Leonard was nice, but didn't want to come home with me, so I talked to this guy named Robin next, and neither did he. Looks like I'll have to liberate the village, earn some more trust, and build up some renown before they'll come to live with us. Well, at least I've still got old Lubomir here. Despite constant warnings about the winter, I hadn't stocked up on berries or mushrooms, which left me without any bait for my rabbit traps. I guess I really should have thought about that. Both of my traps had one final rabbit the next day, but I didn't have any bait to reset them, and they were broken anyway. So I spent the rest of the morning out hunting with varying degrees of failure.
Daggone it. That's okay. I got one.
On my way back home, I spotted Lubo wandering off and gave him my shield. I could only equip it or the bow, so I might as well let him have it for now. Tossed all 3 pieces of meat I'd collected on the grill. Then, all of a sudden, the snow was gone and it was spring. It didn't seem to last very long, but I'm not complaining. Now I can gather stuff like this flax to make Lubomir a hat.
I have a hat for you. I don't have a hat for you. Oh, I didn't finish it. I got bored and left. Have a hat.
I finished the day hunting one more rabbit and gathering all the things that had come back. Berry, 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 mushroom, mushroom. After spending the night working on some new armor for Lubomir, I woke up to find the raid threat was all the way up to 90%. And something was wrong with my friend. I tried to use a bandage on him, but only bandaged myself instead. When I looked at his morale, there were some interesting notes, and his status says it's only a flesh wound. So I left him to heal on his own and decided it was time to go try and deal with those wolves. With the raid threat looming, I really wanted a new friend to help us defend the place, and figured that might be a good way to get some brownie points. So I left Lubo to work on this new bloomery for smelting metal and traveled over to the wolf slayer. I had a bow now at least, and some additional armor. I scoped it out for a bit and shot the closest one with an arrow. Luckily, the others didn't follow as it ran to attack me, and I was able to take it out with my club. It did a fair bit of damage, and I was pretty sure I'd have died if there had been more than one. I got a slightly bigger piece of meat from it than what I'd been getting from the rabbits, and healed up before drawing out the second wolf. It was an even closer fight, and out of bandages, I decided to skip the last one I could see on my map. I only needed 2 for the quest anyway, and made my way back towards the path. Then I tried to grab this tin and copper on the way, but my arrows were taking up too much space. Back at Haerndean, I turned the pelts into the Elder, who seemed quite surprised at my success. I'm starting to think maybe he just hoped they'd eat me. It earned me some village trust and renown though, so I tried again to make a new friend. Leonard said no again, and Pavel wouldn't have me either. Dalibor just sent me after some herbs for his wife, and Helene wasn't having it.
Sorry, but I just can't bring myself to trust you yet.
Then I met Patrick, the town beggar. He wasn't very skilled, but was more than happy to come along. Welcome to the club. You can have Lubo's old armor, and I should probably get you some weapons crafting too. Day 10 started with a not-so-friendly warning. Looks like we'll be getting raided today. That sounds fun. Can't wait. I hustled to gather enough wood to finish the tools for Patrick. While I was out, though, the raid started. I ran home and tried to at least give him my axe, but then he just ran in his tent to hide, leaving me and Lubo to fight. And, well, it didn't go very well at all. They stole some things, though I didn't have much to lose at this point. Broke my loom and killed Lubomir. I was really sad about that, thinking he was gone for good. In my settlement tab, though, it said he'd be back in a little while. Shoo! Patrick was back out of hiding now and stuck on the storage box. I really need to move it, but have no idea how, so instead I moved him and put some lunch on the fire. Then I collected some flax to fix the loom when I noticed my fallen friend was back. Sorry you died. Now back to work. I left him and Patrick to work on more weapons and armor for us, and headed back to town myself to work on more quests. I talked to Amelie, who suggested I find more followers and visit a town called Padstow, which has a bandit problem, then gave Dalibor the plants he asked for in return for some books and trust. I also gave the Elder a couple of these old coins I'd collected for even more village trust. As I left, I got one more quest from Dalibor and made my way home. After starting breakfast the next morning, Patrick was stuck on the boxes again, and since I couldn't figure out how to break it or move it, I just decided to move. Patrick had some weapons now and more armor, so I set them both to follow me and headed off east to the lake. Come on, fellas, we're moving. I wanted to be closer to the river reed and copper I'd found anyway, figuring somewhere near there would be the perfect place. This little flat area caught my eye near a very interesting looking set of rocks. Never mind that big red dot on my mini-map. I'm clearly paying zero attention to that. I got right to work building a new house for the boys, chopping trees and adding materials. I wasn't sure how to make them help me yet, so they just sort of tagged along for now, until I heard a wolf howl. They went straight for it, Patrick the beggar even helping now that he had an axe. I didn't order out for lunch, but we'll take it. The rest of the day I spent building, finishing the housing tent and adding a workbench here. Then what I thought was a personal shack for me. Turns out it was just another housing tent though.
I made a mistake. I built the wrong thing. I built a housing tent.
I started work on the right thing after realizing my mistake, and was still completely tuning out my mini-map, not noticing this other wolf looming nearby. That's okay though, it sure noticed me. Thankfully, my buddies came out of their tent to help, and I got back to finishing my tent as fast as I could.
Woo!
Then christened it with my axe before taking a nap. The wolf made for a great breakfast the next morning on the new campfire, and I finished up some storage. My guys kept walking back to the old base to store stuff, but while I was watching them on my mini-map, I noticed this marker that said Wolf's Lair, right beside my new base. Well, that explains some things. Turns out that funky set of rocks was a wolf's lair full of bones. I suppose they ate the people who left these chests full of goodies. Finders keepers. I built one more chest at the new place to keep said goodies in, and then headed back to town. I'd found more coins and a wolf fang I could give to the elder, and then chatted with the bookseller about some shrines he wanted me to look for. Lunch was a large piece of smoked meat I'd found in the wolf lair, which made a huge difference in my health. I should probably be keeping all 3 of these slots full, but I was still struggling just to make sure I had one food in there. At my old base, I finally figured out how to demolish things. You get some resources back, and I could only carry so much. I'll come back later to get the rest. Come on, Lubo, let's go. Most of the morning of day 13 went to building all the same things again at my new base, setting some new traps, and crafting a new reinforced club with some copper ingot we'd made. By lunchtime, the traps were all full, and then it was more building, including this stockpile for storage I finished late that night. The next day, I started gathering more copper ore so I could make better clubs for my friends too. There was quite a lot of it loose on the ground, but I didn't have a pick yet to gather it from the bigger rocks. I found a piece of tin too and took it all back to smelt. Then, with just one day left till winter, I spent some time stocking up on mushrooms and berries. Stopped by the old place to finish demolishing things, and then started work on some new things, including this smoking rack and a trapper's camp I'd unlocked, which needed lots of logs. Along with winter, I knew my raid chance was up again too, so after we finished up the trapper camp, I started some new armor for Patrick and had another practice fight with Lubomir. Stopped in town real quick after that, just to double check that I couldn't get another villager. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. I've only got 14 renown up here, and not a single quest ready to turn in. I did talk to Amelie again though, and she had quite the laugh about me dealing with the wolves for the elder.
That's hilarious.
She said she'd help me figure out my past, but first I have to help her.
You're going to help me kill the Lord of the Lowlands.
Kill the Lord of the Lowlands. That sounds fun and all, but after getting massacred by just 3 bandits in the last raid, I'm not sure how much help I'll be. She suggested we start by just messing with the brigands. I can do that. Not today though, I've got to get some more ore. On the way, this raid expected notification showed up. Oh yay. I spent the rest of my night doing the best I could to prepare as winter arrived. Hopefully, tomorrow's raid will go better than the last one. I had just enough time to eat breakfast and upgrade Patrick's armor before the raid started on day 16. I'd given him one of the reinforced clubs already, but his skill wasn't high enough for a shield. When the raid started, I waited, watching the direction of the red on my mini-map, which I was finally starting to use. Then I waited some more. I started to wonder if something was glitched, and opened up my map to see a little red splotch moving towards us. So they're just a little slow. As they finally made their approach, I started fighting with the first 2, assuming my friends would come help. When they didn't though, I put up my shield and backed up closer to them. Hey there, I could use some help over here, guys. Patrick noticed first and joined the fight. He just wasn't very strong though and fell pretty fast. Things were starting to look bad when Lubomir came to the rescue. Yeah, get those bandits. With his help, this raid defense was a success. Well, other than Patrick dying. He'll respawn soon enough. I looted the bandits' bodies after, and along with some coins and food, found a few of these straps I'd been needing to research all sorts of things, including better weapons and armor. For dealing with the bandits, I'd picked up a little bit of renown and decided I wanted to work on some quests the next day for even more. If I get enough, I could ask another person to come work for me. I mean, be my friend. First, I started work on the quest for the carpenter, Dalibor. One of his requests was cooked meat, so I headed back to the mountains to find more wolves. Not sure why I didn't eat anything at all to improve my health before the fight, but it's fine. I didn't die. It took 2 wolves to get the meat I needed, then I took it back to put on the fire. It was already full of mushrooms and rabbit meat, so while I waited, I started research on this pitchfork. Eventually, I had the meat cooked and grabbed a couple logs for him too, but I was out of the flax to make the cord until I could gather more in the spring. I took him what I had for now before the meat spoiled and stopped to check this shrine for the bookseller on my way home. Then when I got back, found the smoking rack full of meat from the traps. I hadn't set one myself in days. With the trapper camp, the villagers just take care of all that themselves and cook the meat too. It's quite nice, actually. Well, except when they burn it. Come on now, I was just bragging on you guys. The snow was melting and the plants had returned, so I spent the morning out collecting flax for the cord I needed for the quest. After adjusting the priority of the loom, it was done in no time and I returned it for more renown. Then I told the bookseller about the shrine I'd found near town and got a crafting book in return along with more village trust. The elder was pretty happy to take some wolf fangs for more trust, and I finally got to work on the quest to mess with the brigands here. It was as simple as finding this stash of theirs in the forest and putting a stolen item inside. But when I told Amelie, I got a big hunk of renown, and enough trust in the village to make me a friend of Haerndean. Oh, very nice. Now, who wants to be my friend? This lady named May was the first person I ran into. She agreed to work with us and had some great skills to boot. So I grabbed a couple more quests as we traveled home, and then figured out how to use the E command on the way to have her help me gather some flax. She didn't have any gear to start, but that's okay. We can take care of that tomorrow. I better get this meat off the smoker before bed though, unless we want a burnt breakfast again. I gave Lady May a club first thing the next morning, and then started her some new clothes at the weaver's table, before gathering the stuff for 2 of my new quests and running back to town. After turning them in, I grabbed yet another quest from the merchant and turned in some coins, and then one from the elder too. He told me of a strange figure that had been spotted at the outskirts of town, and after speaking with a few people about it, I found this guy camped in the woods nearby with a big axe. We chatted, and after going through his life story, it turns out he's just hiding from a group of bandits he left. My options were to team up with him and steal their treasure, or to fight. I didn't like the looks of the big axe and decided to just agree to help him for now. I suppose I could always come back with my friends if I changed my mind, though splitting a bandit treasure doesn't sound too bad. Back at home, I started work on several axes for a quest, and this pickaxe for myself. Then I finished gearing May up with a shield, armor, and better club before gathering a bunch of wood in the rain that night. On day 20, I placed another foraging camp. I'd never rebuilt it after moving, and the villagers gathering plants and mushrooms would sure help us prepare for winter. Then I set up the orders at a new logging camp we'd built, so the villagers can collect logs and wood to store too. Automating everything was very satisfying, and I couldn't wait to unlock more stuff. But for now, I guess I'll help out and gather some wood too. After we finished the foraging hut, my pick was done, and I tested it out on a rock. It was not very satisfying. Oh well, at least I unlocked this new shirt. I turned in the axes to Theodore the next day and got another quest from him too. Then with the renown I'd earned from that, I made another new friend, Quinn. He wasn't quite as good as May or Lubo, but was definitely better than Patrick. I gave him a book to read for the road, and we headed back home. I'd collected a few books so far from quests. You can use them yourself or on your followers to improve skills. We made it home just in time for lunch, and just like the others, Quinn didn't really have much, so I ordered my villagers to make him some stuff. While they were working on that, I started building this new weapons rack. The villagers can grab weapons and tools from here as needed, and I won't have to equip them all the time. With 4 friends now, both of my housing tents were full. Guess I should probably start work on another. I gathered a bit of wood for it and left the others to finish it. I think I'm overdue a bit of exploring. There was a place called Padstow to the west somewhere, and I had a quest for there. Maybe I should head that way. It wasn't too far when I noticed these big rocks just off the path, which turns out was tin. I'd found a few pieces in the ground before, but never a deposit. Luckily, I'd brought my pick. I hacked away, slowly collecting bits of tin and rock, almost missing these bandits passing by on my map. They were far enough away, but then I realized maybe I could get some more of those straps. I ran home to get a couple companions, and we almost caught them, until I saw another red dot and turned around, chickening out. I ran into them again when I went out in the morning, this time catching their attention and trying to lead them back to my village. They were too smart for that though, and ran away when we got close. and boy could these guys run. I couldn't keep up and just continued in their general direction until I saw them on my map again. Pretty sure they thought they lost me and weren't running anymore, letting me sneak right up on them. I'd felt pretty confident, I'd eaten well, and had some new armor I'd unlocked. It was a really close fight though, with my shield breaking right at the end. I was one hit from death when I finished the second guy off. I looted them, getting only one strap from them both, and continued west on the path when I noticed this place. There was a fisherman here who I think might be possessed.
Some say it, but here's the kicker. The Padstow village elder is the only person known to have caught one.
Yep, sure thing, buddy. I was going to Padstow anyway. Happy to get away from that guy, I finally reached Padstow and ran into a carpenter who I had a quest for, then made my way to the elder. I offered to help with their bandit problem first, and then talked to him about the crazy fisherman's quest too. This new town had all sorts of new quests for me to collect, so I used my mini-map and accepted all of them I could find, including this guy who was camped outside of town. If I can just finish a few of them, I can build up my renown and invite another villager. And more villagers means more work can get done. When I finally made it back home that night, some bandits made their way right by our camp, and Lady May just wasn't having it. She ran in first to attack them, and everyone else followed to help. I couldn't see much in the dark, but I could hear her battle cry just fine. My little army finished them off with ease this time, and I was quite proud, gathering all the goodies after the fight. Winter was only one day away now, and all the bandit battles must have upped my raid threat because I got this notification. So I spent all of day 23 gathering things that wouldn't be back till spring and prepping for the raid. Sage for bandages, flax for more armor, berries and mushrooms for food, and wood for shields and weapons. I can still get wood in the winter, I'm just always running out of it. Before bed, I gave Patrick this pitchfork, since he wasn't strong enough to carry a shield, then cleared off the campfire and smoker before calling it a night. I stayed home waiting for the raid on day 24, mostly just waiting for my villagers to finish making their new armor, and then trying to figure out where they were putting it so I could equip them with it. Eventually, I had them all in a rugged shirt and trousers for at least 20 armor each. Plus, they all had a reinforced club and shield now, except for Patrick and his pitchfork. With everyone outfitted, I used some mud to make this new water collector while I waited. And just after that, I got the raid incoming notification. I've always heard that you learn more from defeat than success, and that was certainly true here. As the bandits approached, I hadn't figured out there was an easy way to gather my army, and just figured I'd let them keep working instead. So when the first bandits arrived, Patrick ran in with his pitchfork all alone. I ran around to deal with the archer as Lubomir joined the fray, but Patrick was down before he even got there, and then Lubo didn't last much longer. May jumped in after that, but it wasn't long and we were both out too. At least I got a nice view of the raiders taking our stuff though, while Quinn was still cluelessly gathering things. Just as I respawned, he had finally caught on and was giving them quite the fight, but he lost in the end and they came after me again. Let's see how smart this AI is. Luckily, it wasn't too smart and I managed to get away. It was still a rough day though, especially when I saw everything they stole. Well, guess it's back to work. It was winter now, and my people weren't very happy after the defeat. On top of that, the bandits had also stolen about half of the food we had stored, and snow was now falling all around. On the bright side though, I'd researched this new travel sign, which allows you to fast travel. Who knew? Probably skipped over reading it a dozen times now, but better late than never, right? I finished building it and headed into the wrong town next to turn in some things for a quest, then tried building another one nearby, but it wouldn't let me build it anywhere here, so I gave up and walked home instead. Despite the stolen food, I'd prepared pretty well this time and still had plenty, so I traveled the next morning to the right town for the quest, Padstow. I had several people to talk to about quests here, and then tried again at making another travel sign. Turns out they have to be placed on a path, and you can't place it too close to a town. While I was working, I wasn't watching my mini-map, and these bandits snuck right up on me. I hadn't eaten and was weak, but managed to split them up when I ran. I defeated the first one, and then the second one left, leaving me to quickly finish my sign to fast travel home for food. I grabbed some pelt for a quest too, and then fast traveled right back. Yep. Took care of those wolves for ya. Definitely didn't have those pelts just laying around in storage or anything. Then, poof, I traveled right back home again. Without having to travel on foot, I had the time to finish another quest in Haerndean and made one more travel sign down the road before poofing back home. Woke up the next morning to a nice surprise. My raid threat was already at 90% again. Well, at least it's not winter anymore. I really didn't want to fail again at defending our little settlement when the raiders came the next time, and wanted to work on more weapons. So I went to grab the loose ore around the copper across this bridge. I could have used my pick, but it's just awful, and I didn't want to waste any time. See, the raid is coming tomorrow already. I went home and used the ore to unlock this new battle axe, but can't make it until I get more of those straps. So instead, I spent the rest of the day trying to make everyone better hats. After the last raid's failure, I planned ahead this time and started trying to gather my troops using the H key. I found it in the controls for a call to arms, but there weren't any companions or reservists for me to call. Apparently, you have to set each settler to a reservist in the settlement tab. You can also just click the shield by their name, but I didn't know that yet. There we go. I got the opportunity to test it out early when these two bandits dropped by for a visit before the raid. All of my people came running to fight this time, though Patrick was hungry and threatened to leave. But it didn't take long at all with them working together. That's way better. I stuck a few things in my personal storage after that, hoping they wouldn't get stolen in the raid, then spent the rest of the wait finishing 2 more hats and testing out this outhouse where I can flush things away. Oh, and starting this farm. Just after I started working on this cooking cauldron, the raid alarm appeared. So I called together my army, ready to take on the bandits.
Stand tall and fight like hell.
This defense was a successful one, with all of my people surviving this time, but I have a feeling this is only the beginning of what's to come. Back to work, people. There's much to be done.
Need lots of rugged shirts. Excuse me. Oh, they already did it. Okay. Perfect.
Day 29 started out with me gathering some tin, clearly oblivious to the red dots approaching on my mini-map until I heard the battle sound. Luckily, I'd eaten well that morning and brought my shield along.
Hello?
Now, if only I could get my club out.
I want to change.
After dealing with them and taking their loot,
How did I not even notice them?
I went right back to gathering tin.
Okay, well, you get those straps anyway. Hide the shield. Mind the rock.
I was getting more confident with fighting and had a few more friends now. I think it might finally be time to go steal that bandit treasure the guy with the axe was on about. I asked everyone to follow me except for Patrick, and then fast traveled to the sign near Haerndean. When I got there though, it was just me. Oops, I could see them making their way on the map together. Guess I'll just gather some stuff while they wait. Eventually they made it, and I gave them all some food to up their health before heading towards the target, which ended up being quite an easy fight. It was just a few bandits holed up in this cave, and I got some renown and plenty of loot along with the treasure. I took it back to split with Axe Guy and could have probably took it all for myself, maybe even should have, but I didn't and he left. Too bad he can't just join us. I'd like that big axe on our team. We stopped in to tell the Elder about it and I picked up 2 more quests. Then we made the trip back home together just in time for bed. It was straight back to town again the next morning. I'd finished some shirts for yet another quest and bought some fur I needed for research. I also had plenty of renown now for a new friend. Everyone meet Percy and his very nice crafting skill. I asked around to see if anyone else wanted to join us, but I'll have to build up some more renown again first.
Not yet, traveler.
You are a complete stranger.
Well, come on, Percy, let's get some stuff for you. Oh, and read this book too. Most of the books I was using to improve the villagers. At this point, they were doing almost all of the crafting, building, cooking, gathering, and even fighting for me. Well, except for digging mud. That's still my job until we build the mud hut. I went to Padstow the next day to finish some random quests, then went out that night with Quinn to hunt some wolves. I'd seen several more in this rocky area before and just assumed that this red dot was one too, until it was too late. That is definitely not a wolf. Turns out it was actually a very large boar. If I hadn't brought a friend with me, I'm not sure it would have ended so well. You know, I think that's enough hunting for now. The next morning was pretty interesting. I noticed this big group of bandits moving nearby and gathered my army to fight them. It was a very close fight, and I worried it might have been a mistake. All the others fell, and I only had a tiny bit of health left, but somehow managed to hang on and finish this last bandit. Their loot was the only place I'd found the straps I needed to research and craft certain gear, so I was taking any opportunity I could get to get more. I suppose taking out the gang of them had angered the others, because not long after that I got another raid expected notification. This time it had a little 2 in the symbol. Guess we've leveled up. Looky here though, I've got some new weapons we can make. I gathered some copper for those and made a quick run to town after that to see if I could recruit another villager. Meet Tarek Merrick. He's not terrific, but he has a pretty great name. I think I was completely ignoring these traits at this point. Ain't nobody got time for that. There's a raid coming tomorrow. I'll take him. By the next morning, I'd finished gearing up Tarek and started work on this new mining camp for copper. Then, later in the day, it was time for the raid. I gathered all 6 of my people, most of them still upset about the fight yesterday. Maybe we can turn those frowns upside down. The raiding party arrived, and I could definitely tell they were better equipped than the previous raids, but so were we. Look at my new battle axe. The fight was over fast, and after I gathered the loot, I found we were out of storage space, and people were just setting random bags all over the place. Can't be having that now. Guess I know what I'm doing tonight, building a new stockpile. Feeling even more confident now, I took Lubomir with me the next day to try taking on our first bandit camp. On our way, we ran into a couple bandits guarding a crashed cart I was looking for a quest. Then, after dealing with them and grabbing the quest item, I headed up the hill to the camp. The bandits spotted me as I was trying to get a closer look, and Lubo ran in to meet them, so I circled around with my axe to hit them in the back. I'm really glad there isn't friendly fire though, cause I was definitely hitting more than just the bandits. As we finished the archer, I noticed my raid threat immediately went up. I guess they don't like it when you attack one of their camps. After dropping Lubomir back off at home, the mining camp was finished and I added copper and tin to its orders. I don't think it's close enough to any tin deposits, but you never know. Then I made a late night trip to Padstow to turn in a quest. When I went to fast travel back home, there was an X over the travel sign by my camp, which meant there were enemies nearby. At first, I was honestly just frustrated that I'd have to wait to travel, until I realized that meant they were right at my camp. I traveled to my Haerndean sign instead, which was closer, and hoofed it home as fast as I could. I used the call to arms, hoping at least they would all group together. But instead, it just ended up being a play-by-play of them losing health and falling one by one. When I finally made it, only Tarek Merrick was left, and we finished the last 2 bandits together. High five, Tarek. Now I need to decide what to use these straps on. The others were moping around with their injuries the next morning and complaining about the cold.
Bitter cold today. Best bundle up tight.
Brr, bit nippy this morning.
So I left to go work on some quests. First I went to Padstow, where I reached the friend level of trust. Then to Haerndean. I had a thing for the bookseller there, and then 3 different quests for this herbalist just outside of town. After that, I gathered a group of buddies for a little hunting party. I smoked the meat the next morning to take to Padstow for the fisherman quest line, where the elder gave me some secret bites and then ran away as some bandits came into town. I'd love to help, but I don't think I can take them on my own. Once they passed, I finished a few more random quests, fought this wolf and a couple boars for their fur, accidentally sold a book and bought it back for 3 times the price, and placed this new pit saw before calling it a night. I woke up to a 75% chance of raid on day 37. I think it's time for another friend around here. I finished up a quest at Padstow, helping the elder by bribing this brigand, then had more than enough renown to make Hannah happy. She followed me back and I got her some new armor. Oops, I think she still needs some pants though. I started an order for the rest of her gear at the loom, and then you guessed it, went to do some more quests. When I got back, I sorted her pants, and then chopped down some trees for firewood before bed. It wasn't too surprising when I got the raid expected notification the next morning, but look what I just unlocked. A bag. I equipped it for an extra 9 storage slots, which I used to gather wood for this new mixing bucket while my villagers were crafting better weapons and armor for the raid. I'd unlocked this new adventurer's garb and wanted to eventually get everyone upgraded. That evening, I left them to work and went out hunting when I spotted this deer. I took the shot, and when the arrow hit, it ran. It fell after the second shot, and I was pretty excited. There were a couple quests I'd been dragging my feet on that needed stag horns, so I was sad to find only hide and a bit of meat on this one. Well, darn. I stopped at this house across the lake before heading home, noticing he had tables full of armor out front, and the craftsman who lived here had a strap for sale. I'll take that, thanks. Now I can finish researching this leather coif. Then I stayed up late making this new mud collector hut. As we waited for the raid to arrive the next day, I passed out smoked meat to up everyone's health and had finally figured out how to bandage them. Then we ran together to meet the bandits. I'd managed to outfit several of them with new warhammers and at least one mace, making this particular fight a piece of cake. So to celebrate, we went to do another quest. It was a slightly suspicious delivery of weapons, and I took a couple friends with me just in case. I probably should have fought them, but I gave them the shipment. They looked pretty well outfitted, and I wasn't really sure we could win. We did fight this bandit that ran up after, though. Hello. Well, thanks for coming, guys. That was fun. I finished out the delivery quest, talking to the blacksmith the next morning for a nice chunk of renown, then gathered Percy, May, and Tarek to go with me for a different quest, this one to clear out the bandit camp near Padstow. As we got close, there were a lot of red dots on my map, and I started to think maybe I should have brought more people to help, but I'm feeling a bit like Leroy today, and we went in anyway. May fell first, then Tarek, and at the end, it was only me and Percy left. We managed to defeat them just by the skin of our teeth. Now, give me those goodies. I did feel a bit bad about leading them into that. Oops. I let Percy walk home after and made myself a travel sign on a path nearby. These things are great. I wouldn't mind a horse of some sort, though. When I got back, I found my storage was full again. Hey guys, why don't you put a new stockpile over here? Still looking for the stag horns, I went hunting again on day 41, getting another deer first thing. Again, it only had hide and meat. I got a lucky shot on a bird after that, collecting my first feathers. Then it was nothing but bunnies. Oh, and look, I finally found some garlic growing. Giving up on the horns for now, I turned in the Padstow bandit quest, raising my renown high enough for another recruit. I wanted to find a good one this time, paying more attention to the stats, but the best ones required the village to be liberated, and I have no idea how you go about that. Well, not yet anyway. I grabbed some medicine from this guy next, and he gave me some instructions I mostly ignored, then took it to another guy who asked me how often his wife should take it. Oops. Twice a day sounds about right. Or at least I hope so. I'm sure it'll be fine. I tried again for another bird and was not as lucky this time, but I eventually got it. They're a lot bouncier than you might expect. I ran into another herbalist later in the day and bought some garlic seeds too, just before these bandits came down the road. The first one was easy to deal with, but the second one was tough. I got some coin and one strap from them, along with a little renown. Then spotted this pretty place as the sun was setting. It seemed abandoned, and I found 2 chests inside to loot. What a nice way to end the day. Hoping to find the answer to liberating a town, I quested a bit more the next morning, then took 3 of my people with me for one when we stopped at this green, supposedly easy bandit camp on the way. Yeah, it wasn't easy. They were much better equipped than the other camps, and it wasn't long, all my people were gone. So I ran away with my tail between my legs and spent the night gathering copper to make us some better weapons. Sorry about that, guys. It was winter again on day 43, and I started by placing another stockpile before spending the rest of the day traveling. On the way, I scouted this wheat field I needed to steal some wheat from for a quest. Looks pretty well defended though, I'll probably need to bring some friends back. Then I spent the rest of the day following the long road to Blackridge Pool. It took a while, but I figured I could get all the traveling done and just put up one of these handy-dandy signposts. The people were still awake when I made it, and I talked to a few before they started going to bed, then headed back to my new sign to fast travel home, thankful I didn't have to walk all that way again. The next day, I finished up a big quest with the Haerndean merchant, turned in a bunch of coins with the elder, and invited this new girl named Betsy who's quite good at cooking. Oh yay, tomorrow's another raid day. I got Betsy geared up just in time and had several people that were hungry when I called them to get ready for the fight. You get some snacks, you get some snacks, snacks for everyone. The battle was easy enough, and I gathered the loot before deciding to make another trip to a town called Bradford this time. I stopped and bought some cotton seeds on the way, then put up another sign when I made it late that night and poofed right back home. I stuck the new seeds in storage. The villagers just do the rest all on their own as long as there's water and fertilizer. Soon we'll have some cotton growing. I spent the next morning out with Quinn and Lubomir, having a good time fighting bandits and lots of wolves. Turned in some quests in Padstow before going back to Bradford, where I picked up even more.
If you can bring me 2 quivers, thank you. If you can get at least 5 copper pieces.
While I was there, I used my settlement tab to start research on this short sword. I'd unlocked a few new weapons, but getting enough metal and straps to make them was the hard part. Despite metal being a struggle, I spared a few for this guy named Patrick in Bradford, bringing me up to associate status here. Then, things got interesting when I went searching for a lady's lost husband. Turns out he accidentally killed the first guy that came looking for him, because they killed his friend Joseph, who was actually a pet boar. I sent him to tell the elder the truth, and then went to tell his wife. Sorry, lady, your husband's crazy. Well, glad we got that sorted out. After that, I set off to find some sort of secret stash for that fisherman when I ran into this guy.
We heard you've been busy, asking questions about some ancient fishing secrets. Already caught the bait. Now it's time to...
And apparently, he wasn't having me discover any of their ancient fishing secrets, and started attacking. I'd like to say it was a big mistake on his part, and I showed him who was boss, but he was better equipped and ended me pretty quick. Daggone it. I went back the next day to get my stuff, this time with a few friends. Yeah, that guy over there. He was picking on me. Get him. They took care of him, no problem, and I got the super secret fishing parts off of him, then grabbed my stuff before directing my army to a nearby bandit camp. It was well defended, but we only lost one in the fight. As I was cleaning up the loot, reinforcements came. Excuse us, just gonna borrow this gold here if you don't mind. I turned in the quest to the fisherman after that, and we fought a few loose bandits. Then I sent them home while I took the bus stop. Sorry guys, I'll put on some dinner for you though. On day 49, I invited Oscar to join us. Once I got him back home, I added some extra armor and a bag to the loom for him. Actually, everyone could use a bag. And I don't have enough bronze for them yet, but as soon as we do, I want these new weapons made. It was back to questing next, reaching Associate in Blackridge Pool, and Friend Trust in Bradford. Then I was getting close to the next level in Haerndean, maybe tomorrow. First though, I've got an election in Bradford to vote in. I was trying to finish up some of the bigger quests to hopefully liberate a town, and this one seemed fun. After talking with the people, I cast my vote for the newcomer Hans. Guess we'll have to come back later to see who won. I took some coins and a wolf fang to the elder in Haerndean, hoping to hit the next level of trust there, and sure enough I did, which unlocked a new quest. I think I finally figured it out. I bet this is how you liberate the place. Looks like I just need to research the bell tower now. With protector level trust, I could invite even better people, and asked this guy named Harry next. Better get you some gear, we're expecting a raid soon. I handed out a few bags to everyone else and upgraded pants too, then went to the research table to start the bell tower, which wasn't there. I assumed I probably needed to finish this village hall first to unlock it. I'd been working on it already. Now all I need is 8 hide and 5 more straps. I think we can do that. Should be getting a strap delivery tomorrow sometime. It came earlier than usual the next day, but I only got 2 straps out of the deal. That's okay, I know where I can get some more. You remember that bandit camp I attacked that didn't go so well? I think it's time we give it another go. We were better equipped and I had 10 villagers now, so I left 5 at home to work and took 5 with me. It was easy to deal with now, and I collected more than enough straps for the village hall research, along with a few books to make my people even better. We fought a few extra bandits next and thought about attacking another camp until I spotted this guy who was lost and needed an escort to Bradford to vote. I think he might be a day late, but we took him anyway. I spent all of day 52 hunting, hoping to finally get those stag horns, but I'm not gonna lie, it went absolutely awful. I cheered up a bit the next morning when I finally unlocked the village hall. It required a ton of stuff, including thatch, which I didn't have yet. I wasn't sure where to place it yet either, so I made a quick trip to Bradford to see what had come of the election. Looks like Patrick won, but I still got a ton of renown for the quest, and then invited this guy Charlie to come live with us. He might be nearsighted and neurotic, but his hunting skill looks pretty good. I let him walk home alone, spending my evening in Haerndean before building another travel site and this new mining camp near some tin. I spent some time on day 54 working to upgrade everyone's boots and gloves, plus getting Charlie all geared up. Then I got my first headshot on a deer and finally some horns. After that, I spent a very long time trying to gather some tin myself while the new mining camp was still being finished. With the stag horns, I was finally able to make the last trophy I needed for the Elder Dobron. I was hoping for some renown for my trouble, but only got more trust for Haerndean and 2 small traps. Darn. I still had another quest that needed stag horns though, and headed out hunting from there, getting 1 more deer with no horns and a few rabbits before going back home. There, I finally decided on a place for my village hall. Apparently, you have to name your settlement at this point, and I spent the whole rest of the day trying to decide what to name it, only to come up with a slightly basic Summerfell. It's gonna take them a while to make all the planks and other things to build it, so I left them to it and went back to hunting deer. They all have horns when you look at them, but this first one didn't have them to loot, of course. The second one did though. I took them and stopped by this fisher lady's place next, curious if I could buy a fishing rod. She only had fish for sale though, so I guess I'll just buy some of those for now. Winter is coming, and with all the new people, I'd hate for anyone to starve. When I dropped the fish off at home, I noticed all the trees were gone by the logging camp now, with only stumps left in their place. I'd hoped they'd grow back, but clearly that was not the case. I wondered if maybe I needed to remove the stumps first and got to work with a shovel. I had some tree seeds too, I just couldn't figure out how to use them. Never mind then, I had a quest I was supposed to turn in anyway. In return, I got a stag trophy, which apparently gives you more renown when you place it in your village. Ooh. I made a wolf trophy the next morning too, and then made orders for a fine stew at this new cauldron. It gives more health and has a combat boost that will help for this level 6 raid that's coming tomorrow. After that, I went looking for wheat seed at some different merchants. I needed it to get the thatch for the village hall, and eventually found this grain I could buy in Blackridge Pool. I wasn't exactly sure if that's what I needed, but bought all of it they had. I did a pitiful job of hunting after that and built another travel sign, going home to pass out some new armor and weapons. Better rest up, people, there's a raid coming tomorrow. The village hall was coming along nicely the next morning, just needing 2 more of the 80 planks it required and the thatch, which I should have soon. Turns out the grain was just what I needed to plant some wheat. And now we wait for the raid. When I got the warning, I gathered my people and started handing out food. They eat on their own fine, but usually just 1 food at a time. If they're following me though, they'll eat whatever I give them till they're full, increasing their health and stamina more. Come on bandits, let's see what you got. Well, not much today, it seems. Good job, team. I used the straps I looted to research even more armor. There wasn't much new in the table anymore. I'm assuming the village hall might unlock it somehow. For now, though, we're low on food and eating mostly smoked mushrooms. Maybe I should try hunting again. I was finally starting to get better with my bow, going 4 for 4 on my first few shots. Then getting 2 pretty epic shots on these wolves next. Maybe I'm not so bad at this after all. Day 59, I took a team to take on another bandit camp. We brought back so much stuff, I had to put in a new stockpile. Everyone was mad about the rain on day 60, so I gathered them all for a fun day trip. I was tired of waiting for the wheat to grow anyway, and remembered a quest to raid this big wheat field. It looked well guarded, so I brought everyone, just in case, and it was a good thing I did. Despite running into this bandit at first, the field was actually guarded by brigands who are apparently pretty tough. Even with the 8 of us attacking this one, it took forever to finish him. But look at all this wheat. We continued inside with Patrick and his pitchfork leading the charge, fighting 2 more brigands. Patrick didn't last long, but everyone else managed to survive, and I put them to work gathering wheat. Ooh, that's satisfying. Get that wheat. Most of them had bags, so they gathered quite a lot. And while I was gathering some too, I noticed more red dots. I didn't want to get surrounded and committed to attacking one of the sets. They fell much faster. It turned out they were bandits. With everyone's pockets full of wheat now, I headed to the nearest signpost, my army fighting a few more bandits on the way. Then, after I sent them home, there was one more hiding in the woods, blocking my fast travel. Oh, hello there. After introducing myself, I used the sign to travel to Padstow with the wheat to finish the quest, and then finally headed home. Good night. Waking up the next morning, I came out to find my troops had just made it back home, and I felt a little bad about the fact they didn't sleep. No time for that, though. We're out of storage again. Why don't you guys put a new stockpile here? Oh, and this new thresher over here. We need it to process all that wheat into straw and grain. Then I can turn the straw into thatch to finally finish the village hall. I actually ended up finishing most of it myself, too excited to wait for them to get it done. I'll let them make the straw and grain, though. While I waited, I took a friend to gather mushrooms and berries with me. Winter was closing in, and I had more people than ever to feed now. By evening, I had enough straw to research this new arrow basket where I can store arrows for my villagers to restock. The next morning, I went shopping, first at the bookseller in Haerndean, buying several books to up my villagers' skills, then at the merchant in Blackridge Pool, where I bought onion, potato, and beetroot seeds to plant, along with some fur he had because I hadn't seen a boar in forever. Back home, I rearranged the priority on the smoking rack because my people kept smoking too many mushrooms, and after that, I decided I wanted to finish the village hall myself, but it needed a hammer. I'd made one before the villagers had been using. I just couldn't find where they'd put it. I eventually found Oscar with it. Can I have that, please? Thanks. I hammered in the last few bits, and the village hall was finally done. And looks like it comes with a new advanced research table. There was no bell tower in it, but the other stuff looked so exciting I didn't even care. I started researching on this food seller first, until I realized I needed an apprentice innkeeper to do that. Never mind then, I guess I'll settle for the toolmaker. It was winter again on day 63, and I started working on another logging camp. The trees never came back around the old one, and we're gonna need a lot more for these new buildings. I woke up to another raid expected warning, and to prepare, I did a bit of hunting that morning. Then repaired several broken shields, checked to make sure everyone had good weapons, and went hunting some more. We were low on food anyway, and I needed everyone at full health for the raid. Even after the extra hunting, I only had mushrooms and berries to hand out when I gathered everyone the next day. Pretty sure they finished all the good stuff at breakfast. Too late now though, the raiders are on the way. This was the biggest group of them I'd seen yet, but my little army cut right through them. We didn't even lose a single troop. Well, except Lubomir, who just got hungry and left. Now back to work, everyone. We've got a bell tower to research. I'm not sure how, but it was available at the village hall table now, along with even more new things. Can't unlock anything if we starve this winter, though. Silly rabbits. On day 66, the bell tower research was done, and I started work on this well next. Then I went to check on the toolmaker building progress. Looks like it's coming along nicely. After that, I went out for some pretty horrible hunting, made another travel sign, placed an extra bloomery for more metal ingots, and then went to town to invite my best villager yet, Jordan. Just look at those stats. We unlocked this very large hunter's camp on the morning of day 67. When we get it built, the villagers will be able to hunt bigger game instead of just running the small traps for rabbits. And then I spent a very long time gathering tin. Maybe I'm missing something, but so far this is the most frustrating thing in the game. I took it back and then made this new drying rack. Apparently I only had one hide to hang though, so I went for another quick hunt. There we go. By morning, it had turned into rawhide, and I took 3 to this lady in Blackridge Pool for a quest. She gave me some books and this boar trophy, plus a bit of renown. But I'm saving it up for another good villager this time. The renown seems to go up every time I get one, so I'll have to do a few more quests first. Hopefully this new hunting camp I'm working on will save me some time. Sadly though, it wasn't done on day 69. Guess I'll have to do more hunting myself instead. By day 70, the hunter's camp was finished, and I set the hunters to focus on deer and boar for now. We already get rabbits from traps, and I just hadn't needed any feathers yet. Then I spent most of the day assigning priorities to my different villagers. They all have different skills, like Charlie is good at hunting, and Lubomir is actually a great cook. The rest of my day went to gathering wood to build this stockpile. I could have let the villagers do it, but we were completely out of space, and I didn't want to wait. The next morning, I placed this new furnace and got a notification that Tarek Merrick had been injured by an animal while hunting. When I checked the map, I could see boars, but wasn't sure how many and took some friends to help. Come on, boys, we've got some revenge to get. After that, I started work on a better foraging hut, chopping down a few logs to give them a head start. Then I checked in at the toolmaker. Along with the stuff from the workbench, it can make those straps I've been fussing with the bandits about. That should make researching things like this logging camp much easier. I placed it next to the new foraging hut construction, spending the morning gathering materials to build them. Around lunch, I finally went to talk to Elder Dobron about the bell tower and liberating Haerndean. He said some stuff that sounded pretty serious, so I decided to wait. I think I'll bring my army back for this one. First, though, we need some better weapons. I spent the winter working on them and building things around the village like this new staging ground. You're supposed to be able to have troops stock up at it, but when the raiders came, I couldn't figure out how to use it. So instead, I lined them up and handed out food the old-fashioned way. By day 75, winter had passed, and we were doing so well with the raiders I felt confident gathering everyone to go liberate Haerndean. I even figured out how to use E to make everyone stock up at the staging ground flag. Then all together we marched off to town. I told the elder we were ready, and just like that, all the brigands turned to red dots on my map. My army ended up separated, helping the villagers, and I worried for just a moment when we struggled to take down this one. But before I knew it, the battle was done. The war wasn't, though, and the Lord of the Lowlands will be sending more brigands to take the town back. I have to build a bell tower now, so we'll have some warning. I sent my army home and gathered what materials I could nearby. The nails, rope, and planks I'll have to go home for. By morning the next day, I had all the materials, and the townspeople had been building while I was away. I couldn't resist helping with this very satisfying part until this lady came to work on it. When I noticed this red on my map and decided I should probably go home to prepare. They seemed quite far away, but I gathered up my army anyway. We headed to Haerndean to defend it and waited, and waited, and waited some more. As the sun started to set, I knew my troops were going to run through their food before the enemies even got here. Maybe we should just go meet them in the middle. By the time we made it, dark was falling and we stopped in this clearing. I really didn't want to fight them in the trees. At this point, we were down to eating mushrooms and potatoes, but I wasn't about to turn around. Yeah, I probably should have. It wasn't long my people started falling, and then I was down. The others fell too, leaving the brigands to march on to Haerndean. I made a quick trip to pick up my stuff and the battle leftovers, then went to Haerndean just to watch, I guess. As they approached, I could see them from afar, but there were too many of them for me to fight myself, and just like that, the rebellion was crushed. When I woke up the next morning, all my people were very unhappy with me, so I made them build a house so I could get more people. It's a bit better than the current tents we have, and holds 3 people instead of 2. They were also still working on finishing the foraging hut and lumberjack. Maybe I should just grab a hammer and help. After about 10 seconds, I was over it though. Never mind, you guys can do that. Maybe I'll just supervise and see how dinner's coming along. Tarek Merrick got hungry and almost ran away on day 78. I chased him down and gave him some food, then supervised construction a bit more before going hunting. It was a horrible hunting trip, but when I got back, all the new buildings were done at least. The foraging hut that lets you dry berries and mushrooms, the lumberjack for a bigger wood collection range, and this new house. Now I just need someone to live in it. Like this lady. Day 79, we were having storage issues again, so I placed another stockpile to be built, then placed this new barn too. It takes quite a bit more material, but has 1,000 storage slots instead of the 400 the stockpile has. After that, I spent the day running quests, including one for a cure for a sick elder from this herbalist. He asked me what their symptoms were, and I'm not gonna lie, I hadn't listened at all and could only guess. Oops. The next one was with Amelie again about the election I'd voted in at Bradford. She thinks it was rigged. So I fast traveled there and spoke with some people about it. On my way back, I stopped at our village to grab the ingredients for that cure, which turns out was just tea. Then reported back to Amelie. She sent me off to Blackridge Pool to warn them before their election. I went the next day and waited outside while some bandits passed through. I felt a bit bad about it, but without any troops, I'd just die too. When they were gone, I spoke to several different people. Oh, and almost forgot that this cure is for the elder here. Hope I got it right. Good luck. Then I went back to Amelie again.
Apparently a group of brigands were sent there by Lord Ashbourne personally. That can't be a good thing. If anyone can get past the brigands, it's you.
Well, with this news, I tried to make a new friend to help out. Looks like even for the average ones, I'll need a lot more renown now. Guess my current crew will have to do. I spent the evening working on materials for new armor we'd unlocked, and gathered my army first thing in the morning. After stocking up on food and gear, we hit the road to Blackridge Pool. The way was littered with gangs of bandits, which we fought through easily enough. It did slow us down quite a lot though, and by the time I got there, it was night. I could see a couple red dots on my map, but headed to the quest marker instead, where I'm pretty sure they're already in bed. Well, darn. Took all day to get here, and now I guess we're too late. Not wanting to waste the trip, I switched to another quest, and we headed outside town to check on this mysterious guy. His name was Walter, and he was well armed. After talking for a while, I must have said something right, because he agreed to join us that night. We marched back into town early the next morning, and I met Paul here just as he came out of his house.
And Theana got killed in the chaos by Loxley's sword.
Did I cause that? Daggone it. Better go tell Amelie. I decided to detour off first and deal with another bandit camp while I had my troops with me, and headed right through this swamp territory I hadn't been to before. I was also hoping to find peat, which I need to fuel the furnace. Instead, though, I only found more bandits. I really should have paid more attention to this little symbol, which I think is the region's difficulty level. These bandits were easily the toughest I'd seen yet. They were outfitted with shields I hadn't seen before. Even though there were only 4 of them, I lost 2 of my 12 in the fight, with the rest left low on health. Despite the danger, I couldn't resist checking their bodies for loot, but as I did, more red dots were approaching, and by the time we left, it was too late to escape. We managed to take out a few until it was just me, Charlie, and Walter left, with red dots quickly surrounding us on my map. All of the commotion must have attracted them, and I knew it was over, leaving me with a choice. Stay and die with them, or run. Sorry, Charlie. I managed to lose them crossing this water and avoided another giant group of them up the trail, eventually making it back to this bridge. There was constant bandit traffic here, and I waited patiently for the right moment to sneak past. Ah, safe back home at last. After dumping the stuff I'd collected from the bandits we did manage to kill, I went to tell Amelie the news.
How out of hand exactly?
Pretty out of hand, I'd say.
Unbelievable. That settles it. They've gone too far and it's time for a revolution.
Just out of hand enough to start a revolution. Maybe this is what she was wanting all along. I got a hefty chunk of renown and immediately spent it on inviting this very skilled villager, Ruby. Now hold still, let me give you some gear. It's day 83 and I got a warning for another raid. Probably shouldn't be surprised, we did kill a lot of bandits the other day, so I just stayed home working on replacing everyone's broken shields and weapons. When I gathered them the next day, we were low on food after the winter and everyone was hungry. All we had left in storage were random vegetables from the farm, and they give more stamina than health. Luckily though, there was some meat that had just finished on the fire and I rushed to hand it out before the raiders arrived. It was a level 9 raid, but really didn't seem much worse than the last. I didn't even have to help as they defended our settlement this time. In the loot, I found several books for the villagers to read, and this better shield I wasn't strong enough to use, which I gave to Jordan instead. I could research it to craft more, but needed one of the apprentice villagers for that. Guess I should get back to trying to liberate Haerndean. I left the villagers to work on making the latest armor we'd unlocked and these short swords. Then I set my sights on adding some more villagers to help us fight the brigands, setting off for a quest in a new town called Farnsworth. I stopped on the way to make another travel sign. Then, as I got closer, I could see little gangs of red dots all around. Sorry, Farnsworth, guess I won't be visiting today. Instead, I popped back over to Blackridge Pool and headed back to that swamp. Alone, it was easy enough to avoid the bandits here as long as I watched my map. I spent the evening there searching for peat. I didn't find it, but I did find these cranberries at least. I wanted to explore more and went south of Blackridge Pool the next morning, still needing to find peat and now iron for researching the next set of gear. Instead, though, I only found these pretty purple bushes and some granite, which I couldn't even mine with the simple pick I had. Discouraged, I realized that even if I did find iron, I probably couldn't mine it yet. Darn. I placed a sign and went back home, spending the rest of the day gathering all the tin and copper I could instead. The villagers were doing a great job making the weapons, they just couldn't quite keep up with the bronze demand. On day 87, I placed this new weaver's hut and left about half of my villagers to work, taking the others out strap hunting. We could make them on our own now, but it was a lot easier to loot it from the bandits. With my toughest fighters, we battled this wandering gang first, then took on a small camp in Darkwood Passage, before finishing the night with this well-guarded camp at Woodman's Trail. I collected 14 straps by the end of the night, then left them to walk while I took the nearest sign. For the next couple of days, I prepared for liberation again, working on things at base, continuing to improve everyone's armor, building things, upgrading weapons, and making sure we had plenty of meat cooked up. And would you looky there, I unlocked a new cabin for myself. Bright and early on day 90, I gathered my army, not wanting to waste their breakfast. Then, after gearing up, we marched off to Haerndean. I tried talking to the Elder again to start the rebellion, but I think he's just given up. So instead, I started another bell tower, which I don't think the brigands liked very much. We were able to deal with them quicker this time, and I immediately sent my troops home, getting straight to work on the bell tower. By nightfall, I had all the materials and worked to finish it on my own since the villagers were already in bed. Soon as it was done, I got the warning for a reclamation party incoming. It was really far away again, and I decided the best thing I could do was get some rest. The next morning, I almost took too long getting ready, leaving us arriving just in time to cut off the brigands as they approached. This time, we were well prepared and finished them off just in time for lunch, finally liberating our first town.
After all these years, I feel like we finally have a chance for a better life.
Now to invite the apprentice villagers, I just need to reach Bellwright Trust, and I was so close it only took a few coins and wolf fangs to finish the job, making me Bellwright of the town. After that, I started looking around to find an innkeeper or carpenter, but all I could find were blacksmiths, weavers, and farmers. Guess I'll have to liberate another town for them. Each profession can research certain things, so I took a look at the options and ended up going with the farmer for this forester building. I put him right to work researching it the next day, and it was done by day 94, just in time for this level 10 bandit raid. On day 95, I was out looking for a new villager when I got warning of another reclamation party incoming. I headed to the nearest signpost to find the brigands there fighting some bandits, and was so distracted watching my map I got my directions all messed up. Oops. With the bandits after me now, I ran right past this guy, hoping maybe he'd slow them down. Then I just kept running until eventually the last one gave up and turned around. It would be a while before the brigands arrived, so I checked on the newly built forester and went hunting in an attempt to stock up on meat. Then, as I was trying to let it cook, I almost let the brigands sneak up on us. I thought they were further away, and when I finally headed to town, it was almost too late. Luckily, though, we made it just in time. And I went back the next day to build them this shrine. There are other village improvements like it you can make, I just didn't make any of them. With only 4 days left, I knew I couldn't liberate another town, much less all of the lowlands, and instead set my sights on taking out one of the big bandit camps. I took a couple of days to prepare, and then bright and early on day 99 gathered all 15 of my villagers, first traveling to this smaller camp. We defeated the gang there pretty easily. Turns out it was my 10th bandit camp. Then, after a quick breather, continued on to this big castle-looking place. I started to get a bit worried when I saw all the enemies on my map. Clearly, I wasn't the only one. As we charged, Charlie just up and left. The place was really well defended, and another of my troops ditched right in the middle of the fight. Eventually, we prevailed, though, defeating them all. If I had 100 more days, I'd like to liberate all of the towns in the lowlands and grow my settlement to epic proportions, but I guess we'll just have to see how this goes. I wasn't sure what to expect from this game and ended up really enjoying it, so be sure to let me know in the comments what you want to see me play next, and if you liked this video, go watch another one while you're at it.